the tax package just released by Senate Democrats is worse than we could have even imagined. Instead of taking one iota of responsibility for the misspending of your money, they want to reach back into your pockets, tax you out of your home and probably out of the state, because they don't know what it means to budget. Let's discuss it in our segment, Unbelievable. This is nuts. This is just nuts. So this is the kind of thing where I mean that I think we can capture those passive voters. If you can make sure that your friends and family who aren't as in tune with what's going on as you might be, if you can make sure that they're aware of the facts of this proposal, I think that's how you can snap them out of being a passive voter and starting to vote really based on independent thought. So as you know, the state's facing, depending on whose number you believe, roughly a $14 billion budget deficit. So this is the comparison I gave on social media. Let's say that you live like paycheck to paycheck, and you decide you're going to take the money that you need to pay your mortgage, and you're going to take your family on a vacation to Disneyland. And then you get back and you realize, well, I don't have money to pay the mortgage this month because I just blew it all on a vacation to Disneyland that I couldn't afford. Would it be fair to force your neighbors to pay your mortgage for you that month? Do you think that would be fair? Is that the way any of us think when it comes to our family's budget? That's just, oh, Sally doesn't have money for the mortgage, so we all have to split the cost in our neighborhood of covering Sally's mortgage because she decided to spend it on a nice vacation for her family. Of course not. That's stupid. Nobody would be okay with that. But we're okay with the government doing it. We're okay with the government doing it because that's exactly what they're doing with this tax package. Instead of saying we spent too much money, despite ample warnings, every year for at least the past 5 years, we continued to increase our spending. And our spending outpaced how much money was coming in. So instead of saying, well, gee, we better cut our spending, we better balance our budget, they're doing the exact opposite. They want to keep spending even more. And then they just want to reach into all of your pockets and take more money to compensate for their shitty financial decisions. So we had said one of the taxes that they were pondering was to increase the property tax levy lid. So voters in this state, like 20 years ago, said that if your county wants to increase your property taxes by more than 1%, they have to go to the people for a vote. So that's what you said. It's like, if you're going to increase our property taxes, you can do it up to 1% at a time without going to people for a vote. But any more than that, you need to ask us if it's okay. They did that via voter initiative. This is going to tie back into our lead story of the day. So now you have counties saying, well, that's just not enough. We want to be able to increase property taxes at a more rapid rate without going to vote those pesky voters for their approval, because people tend to not like property taxes. It's like weird. We have this far, far left pro-tax majority in Olympia, but voters don't like taxes. They don't like income taxes. They don't like property taxes. So what we thought Democrats were contemplating was to raise the property tax levy lid from 1% to 3%, okay? And that's still a big jump. So that was the thought, and that was still bad. Like, oh my gosh, they're going to jump 1% to 3%. Now King County, anytime it has an opportunity, it's going to raise property taxes by 3%. Doesn't even have to ask people. If that were the proposal, it would still be bad. But the proposal Senate Democrats just came out with is way, way worse than that. So they just dropped a massive tax proposal package. There's a few things in here, but let me focus in on the property tax thing. This is how the Washington State Standard describes it. So it would allow an increase in annual property tax growth from the current 1% cap to the combined rate of population growth plus inflation, which would generate an estimated $779 million over 4 years. So essentially, there would be no cap to how much they could increase your property taxes every year without a vote of the people as long as it's the combined rate of population growth plus inflation. So this is insane to me. And we'll get back to the rest of these proposals in a second. But basically, if you have a year where inflation's really high or the population growth is up, you could be looking at like a 9% increase to your property taxes without them even having to ask you. Without them even having to ask you. This will put people out of their homes. This will be the largest property tax increase statewide we've ever seen. This will force people who had made it work to retire here, who might have lived in their home for 30, 40 years, out of their home to retire somewhere else. This will force working class people out of their homes. I mean, property taxes are already insane. So imagine if instead of 1% a year without a vote, they can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% a year. How is anyone going to be able to afford that? And they say they're the party of the working people and that our tax system is regressive. This is going to absolutely devastate the plans of so many families to raise their kids here and to retire here. They will not be able to afford it. At the same time that Democrats are talking about and complaining about the lack of affordability and the increased cost of housing. Oh, housing is so expensive. We have to institute rent control. But at the same time, we want to dramatically increase your property taxes. Well, gee, what do you think dramatic increases in the property tax is going to lead to? Well, it's going to lead to landlords having to increase rent. And then you're going to cap the amount of rent where they can increase. So what, they're going to lose money and just keep their properties and not take them out of the rental market? Have you lost your minds? None of that makes a bit of sense. But of course, they're going to focus less on, I mean, this is insane. You need to tell your friends and family who are passive voters or vote blue, no matter who voters, how bad this property tax proposal is and how much they could see their property taxes increase. Because I know you'll all have family members who will not be able to afford it and will have to sell their homes and move out of state. Wild. It's wild. Even worse than we thought. So that's just one of the tax proposals that they're putting forth to balance the budget. And by balance the budget, just be able to keep spending money outrageously without any sort of accountability. So they're also proposing, as we anticipated, the business tax, which would expand Seattle's failed payroll tax across the entire state. So that's the tax that puts a premium on high-paying jobs. Because again, Democrats go out there protesting, pay a living wage, everyone deserves a living wage, and saying that businesses aren't paying employees too much. And now they want to also punish businesses who pay employees too much. Wrap your mind around that one. That's what the payroll tax did in Seattle. It was essentially targeted at Amazon, and it said, if you pay your employees over this threshold, so like if you pay your employees too well, we're going to put a tax on that. And so what did Amazon do? Well, it picked up 10,000 jobs. It moved them to Bellevue. But now even Bellevue wouldn't be out of reach because this proposal would expand Seattle's jumpstart payroll tax statewide. So what do you think Bellevue, or what do you think Amazon's going to do then if they can't escape the crazy policies of Seattle? That they move jobs to Bellevue for that reason? Well, they'll probably just move them out of state. There are plenty of states Amazon already has a footprint in that I already know Amazon would be more than happy and has the means to pick up and leave. And you think that will be good for our economy? You think that won't put us in a budget crisis if Amazon picks up and leaves? So that's another one of the proposals. Insane stuff. And then the wealth tax. And actually a lower threshold of wealth than we even anticipated. I think it was worldwide wealth of $100 million. They've dropped that to $50 million. So they want to tax anyone who has wealth above $50 million, $10 on every $1,000 of assessed value of certain financial assets. So unrealized gains. They want to tax you for the privilege of holding wealth, where you haven't even realized the gains on it yet. What do you think is going to happen? I've already heard from rich people. They're not going to pay that tax. They are not going to pay that tax. What did Jeff Bezos do when the capital gains tax was passed? Which they passed really as like a Jeff Bezos tax. He just moved to Miami. It's very easy for them. They have lots of money. They have lots of good attorneys who can figure out all the law. They're just going to live somewhere else on paper because they got houses all over the place. So they're just going to live somewhere else on paper. They're never going to pay that. And they might even just live somewhere else in real life. And they'll pick up all the economic activity that having someone worth $50 million or more brings to our state, the donations they make to nonprofits, if you're a business owner, the people who you hire, the people who you employ, and then how all of that trickles down. So you've got a company like Amazon, because of these asinine policies, they decide we're just going to pick up and leave. Not only are you talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs, you're talking about all of the economic activity that supports that workforce. So if you look at South Lake Union in Seattle, all the restaurants, all the daycares, all the laundromats, every business that exists in that area to support Amazon's workforce goes under. All because Democrats can't budget. And they want to continue to send tens of millions of dollars to their cronies and their allies who donate to their political campaigns. They got to keep the money going in the climate grift. They got to keep the money going to the Washington Education Association. They got to keep the money going into all these homelessness nonprofits that don't fix homelessness. And it is going to devastate our economy if either of those proposals are passed. It's so crazy to me they don't say that. And then they throw this in. This is hilarious. Again, please note this for your friends or family who are passive voters, because they will see a headline about this and they'll celebrate it like, oh my gosh, Democrats are cutting the sales tax. How great is that? So Democrats threw this in. Starting January 1st, 2027, in their tax package, they would reduce the state sales tax from 6.5% to 6%. So virtually nothing, especially when you compare it to the amount of money you'll lose. You'll be out when they increase your property taxes at astronomical rates. But you know why they did this, right? You know why they put this in, right? Because they know that people are passive news consumers. And they're going to use it, and they're going to push out headlines and have their buddies in the media push out headlines. Democrats propose cutting the sales tax. And people won't read further than that. They're like, wow, Democrats they're not taxing everybody left and right like Brandi Kruse says, they're cutting the sales tax. And they're not going to read any further than the headlines that Democrats and the Democrat-controlled media puts out. And then you'll have people who continue their vote blue no matter who because, yay, Democrats are cutting the sales tax by 0.5%, while they're simultaneously looking to massively jack up your property taxes. Again, it's all in how this information reaches voters. And as much as I love our audience, we don't reach every voter in the state. I wish we did. We don't reach every voter in the state. So now we're relying on legacy media, which is owned by the Democratic Party, to cover this issue. And you already know how. And then you have the liars in the Democratic Party like Senator Marco Elias, who during this Climate Commitment Act debate, he was spreading all sorts of half-truths and lies on his social media. And that's what they'll do with this. I already see the graphics that they'll create now. Democrats are trying to put more money in your pocket by cutting the sales tax, period. You already see it. I guarantee they're already out. If you see one, send it to me. Because they know that low information voters are the voters who keep them in office. It's nuts. It's nuts. Meanwhile, Republicans just saying what is true. Senator Chris Gildon on the Republican side saying this is a new kind of March Madness, especially the new attempt to do away with the 1% cap voters had put on property tax growth. We keep hearing from Senate Dems that they want to make the wealthiest Washingtonians pay more, but the property tax increase they want is regressive. It would fall directly on the backs of families who are far from wealthy and also become a pass-through cost to renters across our state. He went on to say, to me, that's talking out of both sides of your mouth. Everyone knows what the Climate Commitment Act has done to their cost of living, yet it's a lot smaller than any of the taxes the Democrats propose today. 100%. So you already got the CCA, which voters didn't repeal. Voters had a chance to repeal it. Voters should have known, if they were informed voters, that this is going to and has increased up to 50% per gallon that they pay at the pump. And there were so many lies and half-truths pushed by Democrats that voters kept it. But the impact of that on your budget, as Senator Gildon points out, is minuscule to what the impact will be on your family's budget if this property tax goes through. My throat's dry from yelling. Sorry, hold on. I've got to lube my vocal cords so I can continue to yell. Give me a second. Minuscule compared to what will happen if the property tax increase goes through. And then the economic devastation if we pass a wealth tax and or push Seattle's failed payroll tax statewide. Not to mention, if you're renting and you're mad about the cost of rent, the property tax thing is kind of going to make that worse, right? It's just all absolutely asinine.